Greetings, everyone. I am Dr. Noni Davis, and I am coming to you from St. C Academy. This is an African Center school here in North Carolina, and we've been operating for 30 years. And I just give thanks to my parents, my father, the late William Edward Davis, and my mother, Sylvia Davis, who co-founded this school with me back in the day. And so today I wanted to begin this journey of learning. Every time I learn something new, I get so excited about it. So I have been watching this video, this series called The Gray House on Netflix, and it takes place in the Civil War, and it's about this spy ring of that was composed of Africans and uh, white anti-slavery uh, um, pro-abolitionist folks who were worked together to pass information on from about the Confederacy to uh, the United States. And so what it got me thinking, I was like, wait a minute, we do have a historical legacy of spy rings among African Americans, and beginning with the Revolutionary War. So I said, well, next week maybe I will talk about the Gray House because that was based on actual events. But I wanted to say, wait, maybe we need to go back to the Revolutionary War because that was one of the first wars. Of course, African Americans participated in all of these wars. I think the French Indian War, we were involved in that. I'm trying to think these other battles that were between the French and the French Indian Wars between the French, the Native Americans, and African Americans, and so um, in every instance, African Americans were trying to figure out who are we going to support in order to get our freedom. That was the goal. We're not here to negotiate anything except our freedom and freedom for our families. And so I wanted to, like I said, go back and let's see where we were during the Revolutionary War. Um, and so I'm sure that you are aware that there were Africans who were spies during all along, and many of these amazing people were taking major risks. We in the movie The Gray House, it shows how these people were violent. We know that this country has always been extremely violent, and it's demonstrated in that movie, The Gray House. There were times I had to like, oh wait, I can't watch this because it was the outcome was going to be. I already knew what the outcome was going to be, and so um, it was, but it gave you exactly what you would expect during that time because things really have not changed. We've seen the same level of violence continue it's the history of America. It's just violent. And so during these eras, we must remember that Europeans had decided that they were the superior race. And so, even as we're going through, my other kids are going through Where Do We Go From Here by Dr. King, that this idea of racism has always, always existed. Um, this idea that we are the only ones who have created any civilization, who have developed any, or have been the motivation behind any progress that the world has made, and all of that. And it's just foolishness, right? But Black people took advantage of this foolishness. They're like, oh, okay. you think you the superior race? We're gonna let you have that. You can be in that fairyland, that fairy tale, all you want to. In the midst of it, we're gonna go ahead and do what we do. And that's the reason why I believe that we are free, because Europeans had lowered the expectation for us so significantly that they couldn't conceive of even what the word drapetomania, and this Samuel Morton guy trying to say that, oh, black people who were trying to escape, they must have been insane, because why would you want to escape from us? We are superior to you. So y'all must be crazy if you want to be free. Okay. So of course they were not going to pay any attention to us if we were gathering information. They didn't even think y'all can't read. They had already decided that we were incapable, and we used that against them. And and I believe that that's the reason why we're where we are now as a community, because while they were playing games and not having setting low expectations, they were in shock when we actually achieved, surpassed the standards that they set for us. So here we go. Um, During these eras, we must remember that Europeans had decided they were the superior race and Africans were the most inferior race. And mind you, there's no race but the human race, uh, but the human race, and no white, black, or yellow constructs can override human race. All of us are just human. Anyway, our genius was to let white people uh, live in that fantasy, and we supported that, depending on the highest potential for freedom. We decided that we're going to yeah, we're going to play this role, and whatever we need to do to get free. And that's what we did. So, and so this is my thing. It was absolutely transactional. What am I gonna get out of anything that I do? No matter how dangerous it is, what is going to be my outcome? So these extremely superior beings, these white men, um, let's see, would tell everything in our presence. So Africans could be servants. We would be doing work as maids, at work as servers, work as taking care of their babies, work as their carriage drivers. Work. We were doing all of that work, and we were quiet. And they said the same thing happened out there in Stagville. They said that they finally realized that African Americans had like this. What was it? I can't remember what the term, but it was like a radio. They said the servants would be in the room, perfectly still, waiting like robots, and they only picked up the food as people were finishing their plates, and then they would leave and go, to the kitchen, and everything that was said at that dining table would be passed on to the people in the kitchen, and the people in the kitchen would take that information straight out to the slave quarters. So they said people in the slave quarters were just as aware of what was going on as these white people in the house. And white people were like, how did this happen? They did not understand. It took them a while to figure it out. And so let's see. So, faking stupid was our cover. These extremely superior beings would tell everything in our presence, share plans, meeting dates, strategies, setbacks, even the things that failed. They would share their trade routes, everything, never suspecting that we were keenly aware and memorizing every detail. And so eventually the superior race caught on to us after several failed plans were realized and could only be blamed or traced back to the conversation that we were having at the dinner table, and the servants in the room. So the first well-known spy was an African man named Kwaku. Now I went and looked up. I said Kwaku because I always wonder, where did they get these names from? Kwaku is Quaco, but I went and looked it up, and it's also Kwaku. Kwaku is a name from Ghana, and it means a child who was born, a boy child who was born on a Wednesday. It is an Akan name, and so they're spelling it the best way they know, but these are African names. And Kwaku was enslaved by a loyalist. A loyalist is someone who was fighting for the British at that time, and his name was James Honeyman. And he lived in Newport, Rhode Island, and was loaned out. So Kwaku was leaned out to the British. There were many enslaved African Americans who lived in Rhode Island at that time, and most were only looking for a way to be free, for the best path to freedom. These Africans were often ignored, like I said, by their high ranking officers who spoke openly about their plans and military strategies. And Africans just quietly busied themselves. Oh, yeah, I'm mopping, I'm cleaning, I'm dusting, I'm washing these dishes. I'm doing, and they would take everything they learned and take it right back out to to the population, and that stuff was like a train, the way it just rode fast. I mean, the information was slinging. I don't know how. I wish I could remember what it was that they called it, but it was the they were transferring this information so fast that they that these British people, I mean, these white military, white superior beings, did not know what was going on. And so Kwaku was, I'm trying to think, what was he doing? Okay, so while Kwaku was working in the kitchen of Mr. Overing, he learned of a mission about General Richard Prescott, who was visiting at that time. And so in 1777, he was acknowledged in he would uh, the general was captured. No, okay. So in 1777, the general was captured by the American patriots. Kwaku was acknowledged in 1782 by the Rhode Island General Assembly. The information he then gave rendered great and essential service to the state and the public in general. So he was able to use his accomplishment as a spy to advocate for his freedom, and he successfully achieved the status of a freedman. So this is Kwaku, and this guy went, like I said, was living in Rhode Island, and he overheard the plans of, was it his? No, okay, uh, he wasn't the one that did the I can't remember which one General Prescott was doing, but they meant he got him. He knew where he was going to be, and was able to pass that information on and have him captured and in prison. So Kwaku was also able to use his, okay, and then he got his freedom. So then there was another African who was as an also a successful spy during the Revolutionary War, and his name was Cato. And so once again, Europeans were giving these Africans these names, and I was like, where does Cato come from? And so while it is something referred that comes from the Romans, and it also is a with a C, with a C is Cato in the Latin, but with a K, it is an East African name of Uganda, and it means this a person is the second born of male twins. Okay, and so the meaning for the Latin meaning is wise, shrewd, or all knowing. So that's what the name meant for the Latin and Latin people. Okay, so during enslavement, the reason why these Europeans would give like Hercules and uh, I'm trying to think of all these other names that they would Thor, all kinds of crazy names they would impose on these Africans, but they were paradox. They were mocking these Africans by saying, "You're a Hercules, but you're my slave." So it was like a little inside joke, like I'm giving you this name, but you really are my servant. So, oxymoron, whatever you want to call it. But it was mockery of of these people. So Cato was able to pass secret information from one spy to another. So he would be out there. Let's see. It is stated that he pretended to be a delivery guy, someone who was transporting packages and clothing. And so Cato was one of many Africans who were actively engaged in a strong espionage network. So these are networks for the American patriots. Um, Now, one of the most famous African American spies during the American Revolution War was James Armistead, and I think I do have a picture of these guys. Let me see. Do I have? This picture is not really of a. He's more of a continental soldier, so because African Americans were here, so this is us fighting in world and this Revolutionary War. This is a colonial soldier. But this is James Armistead Lafayette. And so he was born a slave, um, enslaved person in Virginia. And he was recruited by a French general, Marquis de Lafayette, in 1781. Um, his mission was to infiltrate General Charles Cornwallis camp at Yorktown. I'm thinking I got these dates wrong because 1780s. Well, I think they were they still fighting in 1776 or whatever. All right, so I have to go back and check. But his mission was to infiltrate General Charles Cornwallis's camp at Yorktown by pretending to be an escaped slave. So he pretended he was running away and joining the British in Yorktown. And by pretending, by he was pretending to be an escaped slave, he was asking for shelter, seeking refuge with the British Army. While serving General Cornwallis, he managed to uh, uh, ingratiate himself as a trustworthy man, and he gained access to all of the Cornwallis's papers. And so he collected information about troops, troop locations, troop sizes. He gathered information about soldier morale, like how were they feeling about being in this war? Were they depressed? Or were they happy? Were they excited? So he also transferred that information. What was the health of these soldiers? Were they in good health? Were they starving? Were they hungry? They were not. They had to adjust to this climate, and it was cold, and a lot of them were dying. And he would pass this information on to Lafayette. Armistead was actually one of the first double agents because he was like pretending like he was with the British, and he would pass information to off to the British, but all the information he got from the U.S. And once he went to the U.S., they would tell him, okay, well then this is what we want you to tell the British, and so he would give the British fake information, and so let's see, and so that information will be inaccurate information to Cornwallis regarding American patriots. So his information led to the defeat of General Cornwallis at Yorktown. No, at the siege of Yorktown. But of course, this was the American South. So wherein Kwaku was able to get his freedom because he was in like where what was he, Newport, Rhode Island. They were allowing their Africans who served with them to get free. James Armistead was down here with these crazy Southerners, and so when he asked for his freedom, they're like, no. And so and even though he was able to prove that his efforts led to the victory at Yorktown, they were like, and it was crazy. They wouldn't let him go. And they said it took him, I think it was 10 years before he was able to finally get his freedom. And it was only because he was able to get contact General Marcus Lafayette to advocate for him, and that's how he got free. Otherwise, they were like, "Nope, you're not going to get free at all." Now, then there was another guy, and this guy was also part of the Yorktown defeat. His name was Antigua. But then I said, well, what is this name close to? And I put in Antigo, which was another name that was listed. And then I found Tego. So, which is maybe the one that was his real name, Antigo. The reason why I think it was Antigo and not Antego is has East African roots from the Luo people of Kenya. And it does mean the one who is brave. But Atego is from Nigeria, and it's an Igbo name, and it means glory and honor. So I said, okay. So apparently some of these people, even though they were at war, or they were enslaved. Let me put it like that. My brain, even though they were enslaved, they were still, a lot of them still were able to keep up with their traditional names. And so I thought that was interesting. So he lived in South Carolina, and the mission was to provide information he gathered about the movement of the enemies and their designs, right? So he's in South Carolina. The British are invading that area. The 1783 South Carolina Assembly finally did honor his contributions to defeating the British at the risk of his life. Now, fortunately for him, he was eventually freed with his wife Hagar and his child. But he was a part of the underground. I mean, that not underground. He was also part of a spy, a mission to defeat the British. And so, like James Lafayette, there was another guy named whose name was Saul Matthews, who also helped to gather information on the British General Cornwallis, and his information was critical, just like Amistad, in ensuring the defeat of Cornwallis at Yorktown. However, it took him 10 years to achieve his freedom in Virginia in 1792. These papers are Virginia. Okay, Virginia. Okay, Virginia. I see you, Virginia. Anyway, so the last person I want to talk about is this woman named, her name is Liz. Liz. Her name is Elizabeth. Now, this one right here could be a movie. I think all of them could be a movie. But this lady right here, her name is Liz. So this is an image of her, and it's titled "Spy and Freedom Seeker." So Liz was born in what was it? They said she was an enslaved woman, African American woman who was part of the Robert Townsend household. So the Townsends were these very rich people who lived in Rhode Island. I think it's Rhode Island. What was it? Oh, New York. Okay, so and so she belonged to Robert Townsend, and he was a member of the Culper spy ring, which operated out of Oyster Bay, New York. She was born in 1763 in Long Island, New York, and from the start wanted her freedom. Her name is Liz, and she was just a child. While living with Townsend, Liz encountered a colonel, and his name was John Simcoe, and he also was a British officer. Now, Mr. Simcoe was also an abolitionist, so he didn't believe in slavery at all. And so he did convey to her, "Hey, Miss Lizzie, if you want to be free, escape to the British, okay, escape to the British, and we will help you to. You can, if you join the British Army and help the British, then they will help you to escape and get your freedom." And she was like, "Bet." Okay, so I have to read some of this on here, but anyway, so Liz said, "All right, no problem." And so it is. Let's see. So Liz informed her. He told her all of that. So Liz eventually met John Andre. Now John Andre was the leader of a British spy ring. So now this story is the one that, like I said, should be on a paper on a movie screen. So Liz decided to run away. She ran away, and now her owner, Robert Townsend, was, like I said earlier, he was also part of a spy ring, but the culper's spy ring was support was authorized by George Washington, who was the general of the American Patriots. So she was caught between two spy rings, the one with John Andre, who was for the British, and the one that Robert Townsend, who was her owner, was also involved with, called the Culper spy ring. And so It's crazy. Let me see if I can find it. So what I did is I was like, okay, let me get this information. So one of the British commanders that was the James Simcoe, da 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 da. So what happened is that she managed to escape, but let's see, Robert Townsend, who was the part of the Culver spy ring, said, "Where did she go? Where does she think she going?" So he decided to follow Simcoe, because he was like, I bet that boy, he was a spy, right? So he's like, Simcoe probably has something to do with this. So he began to follow Simcoe, the guy who was from the British Army, around, and he also urged his dad to just like, oh, just give up, because Liz is probably over here with the British and she ain't never coming back. But she ended up being recaptured. So Liz was recaptured and was re-enslaved in Lower Manhattan by the British, just as Robert took on his role as the lead spy in Manhattan. So he was in Manhattan and she was in Manhattan. And it is believed that he may have even convinced her to join his spy ring using the code name 355, which stood for the word lady. Crazy. So, as an enslaved woman on the British side, Liz may have had access to high level. So he said, you have been re-enslaved, but I'm gonna let you stay over there with them, and you're gonna be our spy on the inside." So she was also a double agent. Now, what she was supposed to do is get Colonel Simcoe uh, to listen to her, and eventually Colonel Simcoe exposed himself. Uh, he was and he Colonel Simcoe could take part, and Andre met him in what was his name? John Andre met him in East Hampton, Long Island, and an enslaved black woman who they believe may have been this woman Liz. Um, uh, 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 Said the intelligence about Arnold was just foolish talk. I mean, wait, okay, attempted to thwart the plot. So they were trying to set up the plot for them to move to meet. And so instead of believing her, the white woman of the house said, "Girl, get out of here. You're a foolish dog." And so it's instead of um, let's see, Andre getting away, he was betrayed. And I think, and guess who else was wrapped up in this? Benedict Arnold was got wrapped up in this. And so Washington was furious that because Benedict Arnold was supposed to meet with this guy. Was his name? Oh, where did I put his name? Andre, John Andre, to create some plans. Because Benedict Arnold, was an American, and he was meeting with this British, and they were plotting. Anyway, Liz was all up in the middle of that. Didn't know that. Okay, but Benedict Arnold escaped. John Andre was caught, tried for espionage, and hung. How about that? Isn't that crazy? And so, let's see. And so, uh, Benedict Arnold escaped to Manhattan, and he switched sides, rounding up dozens of suspected American spies that Robert knew, and fearing he would also be caught. Robert moved to the edge of the city to a place called Peckslip, and ceased writing spy letters to Washington. So the whole spy ring was dissolved. Now, what happened to Liz? Liz ended up, she became pregnant, and she faced imminent evacuation with the British. The British were going to try to take her out, but she reached out to Robert for his help so she could stay in New York, and he took her into his home and made her she and hired a white maid, and did what he could. But then after eventually what happened, I think the war had been won, his new life was beginning, but he did not promise her her freedom. And so in a misguided plan, he sold Liz and her baby to this other person, and then the person decided to sell Liz down to, I think she went to South Carolina and kept her baby and her little boy named Harry and in Manhattan. And then it was took a long time for her to actually um, get back to she was to Manhattan. I'm trying to think. I think the guy Townsend finally found her and found a way to get her back to Manhattan. And the whole story was like crazy. So despite their suffering deception, violence, and separation from her child, Liz never stopped seeking her own freedom and her assertion of her own will, her intrepid petitions to control her fate, the denials of her basic humanity, and her ultimate triumph in the face of repeated tragedy and injustice make her a symbol of enduring bravery. So this article was called let's see, List, an American Battlefield Trust. And the other article that I use, oh my goodness, what did I write? It's called William C. Nels wrote it, the Colored Patriots of the American Revolution, Boston, 1855, Black Spies of the American Revolution, the very nature of the espionage of secrecy. And that was written by Kate Egner in 2023. So these articles are amazing. There's so much history, and I really would love to see how this, somebody needs to write a book. Maybe I'll write the Maybe I will. I'll write a book about Miss Liz because she is impressive. But anyway, so our folks were all up in it. And so next week, I will come to you and talk to you about what was it, the Gray House and African involvement in spy rings during the Civil War. Ashe.
They were never supposed to win. In a system built to keep Black families landless, one decision changed everything. Bitter Ground's Inheritance tells the true story of heirs who fought through Jim Crow, courts, challenges, and silence to claim land, wealth, and legacy. Told by descendant Captain Newborn, this is more than a story, it's a rare victory. A must-read that exposes America's hidden past. Get your copy today.
If you're talking, they will hear you.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. And we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. Not just one time, but every chance we get. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids not only need to know the dangers and how to avoid them, they need to hear it often from you. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids and guide them through the challenges of growing up safe and healthy. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So talk, they hear you. You can do it if you try.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I walk into the sound of drums. I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I walk into the sound of drums.
I'm student. Of course I can work with my hands.
I'm a St. Cia student.